Started. So welcome again, everyone. My name is Erica Hill. I am the principal of Vision Street Research. We are a minority and women-owned business in Baldwin, New York. This is part 3 of our workforce development webinar series, where the focus is on preparing for remote interviews. So I'm going to take a moment to introduce some of our distinguished guests that will be participating on today's panel. First, I'd like to start with Flora Quick. She is the founder of Quick Resume Career Services. She earned a master's degree in counseling from LIU, has 5+ years providing career coaching and resume development services to students, entry mid-level professionals, and career changers. She brings value to her clients in 2 areas: in writing resume, cover letters, thank you letters, emails, employee application, and in coaching in terms of interviewing, dress for success, career marketing action plan, and career assessment. So we're so happy to have Flora back with us again this Wednesday. She was with us last Wednesday, providing all the do's and don'ts on resume writing and cover letters. So thank you, Flora, for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
Second, I would like to introduce our distinguished guest and also someone I know very well, Kay Hill, my lovely mother, but also a retired HR professional. She spent the better part of 2 decades as an advertising executive at the New York Times, enticing blue chip firms to purchase coveted space in newspaper of record. She later changed careers at the Times and became a recruitment specialist in human resources, hiring MBAs for positions in advertising and marketing. So I'm especially happy to have Kay Hill with us today on this panel. Kind of brought her out of retirement just for me, so I feel privileged that
Hello, everyone. I'm happy to be here.
Next, I want to introduce my right hand, left hand, my backup, my night text chatter, my senior marketing intern, Kadisha Cox. Kadisha is a senior at the University of Albany, pursuing a major in business administration economics. She has always been a resident of Roosevelt, Long Island, and is community driven with anything she does. She plans to start a nonprofit of her own with her community that gives students opportunities they never had. So thank you, Kadisha, for being a participant in this webinar and for being one of my moderators. And I'll let you take over to kick us off.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here, honored to be in this seat right now. I would like to introduce Ms. Elaine Gross, principal of Erase Racism. Elaine Gross is the founder of Erase Racism, a regional civil rights organization that's based on Long Island that exposes and addresses the devastating impact of historical and ongoing structural racism, particularly in housing and public school education. The organization does so through research, policy advocacy, legal action, and educating and mobilizing public driving policy change at a local, regional, and statewide levels, and also through national coalitions. Miss Elaine has a current position open in her organization that she will speak more about later. And we will get started. So during our first 2 sessions, some of the takeaways have been that tech jobs are everywhere. Remote work requires discipline and time management. Financial services advisors are in high demand right now. Your resume and your LinkedIn convey your personal brand. Cover letters should convince your employer to read your resume. And the biggest takeaway is that optional equals effort versus elimination, meaning that to an employer and an interviewer, the word optional is simply a bait to weed out whoever won't put in the effort. For example, like if you don't include something like a optional cover letter, your resume may be eliminated and they might not even look at it. So this session is focused about being successful in an interview. And as a rising senior at the University at Albany and a college student who will be soon entering the workforce, Ms. Flora, what can you tell me about how to prepare for a virtual interview?
Hi, Kadisha. Hi, everyone. When we think of an interview, whether it's virtual or in person, we might decide that we are not going to follow the same rules because it's a virtual interview. The interview's purpose is for the employer to find out your motivation and personality, your qualifications, your skills, your knowledge, and abilities, whether it's in person again or via Zoom or whatever platform the prospective employer is going to use. The best way to prepare for any type of interview is to practice. Practice answering certain questions, practice being in front of the camera. If it's going to be Zoom, most likely, or the platform, make sure that you have downloaded the platform that they're going to use, whether it's Google Meet, Microsoft, I think it's Meet Group or something like that. You want to make sure that you have the platform that they are going to use, and if it's Zoom, that you use it properly. Also, you want to practice before the interview. Maybe call one of your friends and say, hey, can we practice so you could tell me how I look on camera? You want to make sure that your backdrop is professional. Those are just some of the tips. You want to make sure that the colors that you're wearing are appropriate for the interview. And if you are sharing your space with someone, you want to make sure that they're not dancing in the background or doing something silly, because I'm sharing that because I've seen that happen. And if you have pets in the house or small children, you want to make sure that you minimize the noise coming from outside or from your apartment.
So minimizing noise, making sure that your background is professional, making sure that your clothing is professional. And the best way to prep, you would say, is mock interviewing with somebody. Should I have my resume in front of me? Does that help?
Yes, it does help having your resume in front of you. And you also want to make sure that you have pen and paper and that you have your references with you, because they might very well ask right then and then, what will your coworkers say about you, or who can I contact for a reference? You just never know what's going to happen. So you better be safe than sorry. You want to have your resume, you want to have pen, you want to have paper, you want to have your references. You want to be fully dressed. Some people will just dress from the waist up. What if you have to get up to get something? You want to dress as if you're going to an in-person interview. If you like to wear perfume, wear perfume. If you like to wear cologne, wear cologne. You want to be mindful of what you wear. You don't want to wear too much cleavage, because if you are a lady, because if you have to bend down to pick something up, some things might be exposed that don't need to be exposed. So you want to make sure that you have all of those things in place, and you want to make sure that your sound and your light is proper. It's going to make you look not sick, but just healthy, because some lights make you look a little too pale, a little too dark. You want to make sure that you have the right light. If you are a lady and you like to wear makeup, you want to make sure that the makeup looks right. And I always advise to my clients, whether they're male or females, if you're going to do a Zoom meeting, please put some makeup on. No one has to know that a male has makeup, but if you have to look a certain way. You have to look like you're up and awake. One thing that I like to do before I have an interview, whether it's Zoom or in person, I like to listen to something funny, or I like to dance, or I like to meditate, because that puts you in a state of mind where you're going to be calm, cool, and collected, and you're concentrating, you're putting your mind in the interview.
Thank you so much. I'm looking at myself now like, do I look tired? But but
You're looking fine, Khadijah.
So pretty much putting the virtual interview on the same platform that you would a regular interview, giving
Yes.
that pressure. Thank you. Next question is for Ms. K. Based on your experience in the field of human resources, what are some of the mistakes that you've seen people make over the years, like during interviews? Any do's or don'ts that you can share with us?
All right, I like to start with the positive things first. So I'll talk about some do's that you should do, or I believe you should do, or I believe that you should research the company so you know what the company is about before you get there, and if possible, be able to find some nugget of information that you could help them in whatever it is that they're doing, that you believe that you have the skill set to help them with. I also think that it's a good idea to prepare questions that you want to ask the interviewer about the company. You can bring them with you, but you know, have 3 or 4 questions that you might want to ask about, you know, the things that the company's about, you know, that shows that you're really interested, that it's not that you just want a job, but you're really interested in this particular company. Now, as to the don'ts, please don't be late for the interview. The interviewer, you should wait for the interviewer. The interviewer should not have to wait for you. That is definitely a no-no. I had that happen to me several times. It did not make me feel good. The other thing is, and I think Flora already covered that, is to do not come in looking unpolished. I remember one young gentleman came in and he had his suit on and he, you know, had the requisite shirt and tie, but I happened to glance, because I guess this is a pet peeve of my own. I happened to glance down at his shoes. They were dusty and dirty. You know, all he needed to do was brush them off. So it took away from me his polished look because his shoes look dusty. And the other thing is come in with confidence and energy. You can't be low key. I know sometimes you're nervous, and sometimes they're shy people, but you know, if you're coming in for an interview for a job, you have to come in looking like, okay, this is my moment to shine. I'm going to convince you that I'm the person for this job. So, you know, those are the few things that came to mind for me.
Thank you so much. So we have, I pulled together 5 reasons people may fail at interviews, and you covered most of them. Do you know what it means by saying like not seeming coachable enough during an interview?
Not seeming coachable enough?
Mm-hmm.
No, I'm not sure. I'm not sure what that refers to.
I think it leads into something with the enthusiasm you show.
Oh, well, you should. I mean,
being optimistic.
You should. But the one, you should be enthusiastic about being in the interview. But the other thing is, don't let the interviewer start the dialogue. Sometimes, and I think this is nerves, and you want to try to prove yourself to be the one, you might start talking about how great you are. And the interviewer hasn't asked you the questions that he or she wants to ask you, and they might be a little bit put off by that. There's a question that always comes up when you're being asked, what is your greatest weakness? And most of us don't want to talk about our greatest weakness because we think that it's going to put us in a poor light. But the idea of being asked that question is to really hone in on whether you have self-awareness about who you are and what you're capable of doing. And so you can talk about an instance where you had a problem and it caused you to be thrown off a project, but then you need to talk about how you overcame that. You realize that you had this weakness, you know, maybe anger management, you know, that's one that comes to mind. So you've taken a course to help you develop something that will keep your anger in check. So don't look at it as, don't try to avoid it, because the interviewer probably will pick up on that. Don't try to avoid it, but then just look for ways that you have used to overcome this problem or this weakness or whatever.
Thank you, Ms. Hill.
So what I've heard so far is preparation, positivity, being self-aware. And I mean, what I've been very strategic about is for each of these webinars to have somebody on our panel that actually has positions available so that people can hear from an actual employer about their interest and kind of how they assess candidates. So Elaine Gross, president of Erase Racism, has 2 opportunities actually to share with us today. So for you, Elaine, you've heard some of the information from Flora and from Ms. K. I would like to know, can you tell us about the positions that you have? Mm-hmm. And what are you expecting, right? Like what gets someone from that resume cover letter to meet with you virtually?
Mm-hmm. So I'm going to flip that because I want to comment on some of the things I've heard, and then I'm going to tell you about my specific positions. So one of the things that I ask for is a persuasive cover letter that connects your experiences with the position. I can't tell you the number of times I get a cover letter that says, I'm a great fit. Like, what is that? That's not terribly helpful. You need to show that you understand what the job position is, and you need to be able to explain what your particular skills and experiences are and how they mesh. That's what is needed in a cover letter. it's not just an opportunity to say, you know, I'm really excited about this position, or I'm a great writer. I want to see how you're a great writer in your cover letter. You know, so really make sure you don't have writing errors in the cover letter. That's important. And also don't apply for positions when you are clearly not, you are not appropriate for that position. So we do have 2 positions open. And if you apply for both positions, the positions are different and they require different skill sets. It tells me something about your assessment of yourself that you've put in your application for both positions. So let me tell you the 2 positions. One is a community educator organizer. And this is certainly, communications is key in this position. It's communications that are certainly online communications, understanding technology, that's important. But also you would see in the position the interpersonal is important, because we do work with real people in real time. We'll get back to do that at some point. And so I'm looking for someone who is very mission driven. You can probably tell by the name, Erase Racism, that this is not something you just sort of sit back in your chair and come to work and that's it. We are about engaging the public and making change, educating the public so that they can be properly engaged, and then moving forward to change policy, change what's going on in a particular institution, legislation, etc. So that person needs to be outgoing, needs to feel comfortable in their own skin, able to relate easily to people, whether they're relating to them in person or online. The other position is a program manager, and this is the more senior of the 2 positions. And again, you need to be careful with that cover letter. You need to make it clear why you are the person that's good for this position. So we're looking for people who can really do policy and program analysis, because not only do we look at what's going on in the state or at the federal level, and we have either a critique or we want to engage people to move to support or object to what's going on, but then we have our own programmatic initiatives to, again, to help bring about change. And so tell me, what have you done? Tell me about your particular skill level in research. You should have looked at my website, so you will know the kinds of reports we put out. You will know the kind of writing that's needed for that position, as opposed to the kind of writing that's needed for the community educator organizer position. And you will also know that I'm looking for some demonstrable evidence of your expertise and of your interest in and familiarity with the key program areas that we work in, which include housing, looking at housing discrimination issues and how to engage the public in fighting for fair housing, and then public school education equity issues. And so if you don't have any of that, which is possible, because I do know that, I mean, I've seen a lot of public interest lawyers, they know nothing about fair housing. What they learn in law school is a little bit about employment discrimination, but they don't really learn about housing discrimination. You know, there are policy folks who have worked in particular areas around policy, and maybe they don't have particular expertise in my two areas. Well, then you're going to make a very strong argument, and you're going to show that you've at least tried to learn something that says, you know, I have the skills for this, and I'm a quick study, and this is what I know about the subject matter. And I'm absolutely interested in diving into this. So those are just a couple of quick things about the positions that we have and what you can do to try to put the best, put the best foot forward in talking about yourself.
Thank you. So I guess, so one, if you guys haven't heard it or made it clear, it is in the chat, persuasive cover letter, right? You can find those job postings on the Erase Racism website, as well as on Vision Street Research. We have a job seekers page. We've added them there as well. But keep in mind, like, if you're thinking about applying to both, listen to what she just said. Like, applying to both does not increase your odds, right? Your cover letter is supposed to be able to articulate why you possess the skill sets, and you'll be an asset to her organization. So just applying and thinking like, oh, well, she'll see the resume, she's not going to do that. Your cover letter should be able to communicate why you're the best fit for one of those organizations. We were not advising to apply to both because they do have different skill sets. The other thing, though, I was going to ask you, Elaine, was once they get to the interview, I know Flora and even Kay shared some information about things that have happened in interviews. Is there anything, do's and don'ts from your own personal experience with even the regular interviews, right? Maybe if they're not even virtual, like, that you would like to share with our audience?
Mm-hmm. So I would ditto the things that have already been shared. And I would add, people need to be concerned about their personal hygiene. So I hope that is clear. I want to see you. I want to, if there's a small hint of some cologne or something, that's fine. But I don't want any other, I don't want anything else in the atmosphere. The other thing is, it is challenging to have that right balance between listening and talking. And maybe it would be helpful to ask a friend or a colleague whether or not you are too much of a listener or too much of a talker. Because there have been people who you cannot get them to stop other than to say physically, okay, well, that's enough on that right now. Let's move on to this next thing. And you don't want to have that happen. You need to be able to make your point, and then you're going to listen to what the next question is. Asking questions is good. Allow the interviewer to give you that option. Don't come in asking questions. You need to listen to what they're going to ask you. And if they forget to allow you to ask for questions, you can always say, at the end, well, I have a few questions, would that be okay? That's fine. But someone that comes in and sometimes they have their list and they put the list up and they say, well, I have a few questions I want to ask you. And it's like, no, don't do that. I'm going to give you a chance to ask questions. And then the final thing I would add is, it's okay to say you don't know something. Better than making up stuff. Better to just say, oh, I really haven't been exposed to that, or I'm not quite sure about that. That's fine. I mean, you're not expected, you're coming in for a job. You're not expected to know every single thing related to that job. And the honesty and the transparency is very important. And if you don't want to give any impression that you are oh no, I can't say that word on the Zoom, that you're just making up things.
That makes complete sense. Thank you for that. Before I pivot and ask another question to Flora, I just want to throw out there to all of you now. So one of the things that I heard Kay say about the interview, about doing research in something, so it made me think about an instance when I was working at the Nassau County Comptroller's office and I was interviewing for interns. And I literally sent the interns an email that says, read these links before you come to the interview, right? Like I was gifting it. So like, don't come into an interview. And I could count how many times people came into the interview and could not tell me anything that the comptroller's office did. It was mind boggling. If I sent you the link, you couldn't even, so again, about the effort, you couldn't click on the link. Like the link tells you what we do. And, there were reports. So I definitely can see, like, even, starting, these were college students, that some people just were not going to show the effort and just thought them just presenting. I mean, they were dressed very nice. Everybody had a resume, but that for a lot of the people in the office with me was a turnoff, because it's one thing to say you don't know as much about all of the equity work or about some of the affordable housing laws, right? Like that you could learn. But if you can't tell Elaine just what erase racism does, right? And like, there's a whole website, there's a whole social media, there's a whole news article, like, to me, then you're not going to be the right candidate, because that shows you didn't even, I mean, Google is a beautiful thing. Before the pandemic, Google has been a beautiful thing. Like, you can find so much information about anybody and anyone. So I just want to emphasize, like, there are ways that you indicate to the potential employer about your effort, and things like not looking at their website or not clicking on the link that they specifically send to you and say to read before you come in, then you've now left, a very poor impression before you even got to the rest of the interview questions. Because one of the questions most people always ask is, what do you know about my organization? Mm-hmm. To just show the basics of, did you even do the research to make sure you know what we do?
And read the rest. And if I could just add, read the job notice.
Yes.
That's another one. People don't read the job notice. And so they send you something with information in the letter, and you think, what does this have to do with that? It's like no connection whatsoever. And they come into the interview and they really don't know what the job is.
Yes, I would definitely agree. So that actually brings me to something else that has now become a trend. I was actually informed of it first by Flora, and now I've learned that other agencies, workforce development agencies, are kind of taking it on, which is this whole virtual job fair. So when I was an undergraduate student at Clark Atlanta University, the big thing we all had to look forward to was this big old job fair at the Georgia World Congress Center, right? It would be thousands of people from the whole AUC, from all of Atlanta. Sometimes they would give you some insight about who the employers were going to be there so that you could Google them to, kind of see what type of business that they do. But now, because we can have, I think, 10 people, or I don't know, 50, I've lost track. I don't want more than 10 people around me, and I need them all to have on a mask. So because of that, I know people have shifted to these virtual job fairs. So Flora, since you're my expert on this, because I have never seen this, I'm very intrigued by it. Can you tell me, like, I know you hosted a virtual job fair, how exactly these things work? And then more importantly, how does a job seeker prepare for a remote job fair?
The idea of having job fairs moving from in-person to a social platform is because of everything that is happening. And I think it's a great idea, especially for people who might be considering moving from one state to another. See if they have any upcoming job fairs in that specific state that they want to move to, and attend them, because that way that gives them an idea, okay, what employers are available, what they're looking for, what they have. I recently I took my business, I usually do in person when it was possible. I will go to job fairs just to give the job seekers feedback on their resume, their interviewing skills, and just to promote what I do, but also give them feedback, because I will see them, okay, you could go and talk to this company. I think that would be a good match for you. Or do you know about this company? And in person, for job fairs in person, what they usually do, they have a map of the companies with the company's names, the company website, what jobs they have available, who the representatives are going to be. And then when you come in and you sign in, they'll give you a map, and then you decide who you're going to visit first based on your needs, what you're looking for. It's basically the same thing in via Zoom. That's the last one that I attended. That's the platform that they use. So what they do as a job seeker, you will register for the job fair. They will send you a list of the employers that are going to be there and some of the positions that they have available. And sometimes they send you the name of the representative that's going to be there. So as a job seeker, if you're interested in attending this virtual job fairs, they're already giving you a lot of work, a lot of information. They're giving you the names of the companies. Sometimes they give you the names of the representatives that are going to be there, and they give you the titles of the jobs that they're going to have, and sometimes they impose their job requisition. So like Ms. Elaine was saying, they already done half of the work for you. So your job is to now go and visit the website. Sometimes they even post a link to the website. Visit the website, find out what the mission and the vision of the company is. Have your resume ready. If you are going to apply for a specific company, then you want to look at the job requisition. You want to break it down. They want someone that has a bachelor's degree. I only have an associate, but the bachelor's degree is required. Depending on the experience that you have, I might ask a question or two. If they are saying you need to have a bachelor's degree is preferred and you have an associate's degree, you could definitely apply for that if you have the other requirements. Bottom line is you want to treat the virtual job fair as if it was a real one. You want to be prepared for the interview because some employers will ask you questions right then and then. The way it works, you go in, they have this admission booth where when you sign in as a Zoom member, they'll send you you have the link, you sign in and you see the companies. Then you decide, again, because the idea is that you already did your homework, you decide which company you're gonna go to and go to their Zoom meeting first. And then you introduce yourself. I was doing it and I see people walking into my room and I'm like, hey, how are you, Kate? Next thing you know, Kate's gone. And I'm like, oh, okay. Just stop in, like just speaking in and just walking back out and not saying anything. I'm like, that was rude, right? And then I have some job seekers that will come into my space and they wouldn't introduce themselves. I will say, okay, hi, how are you? They're like, oh, okay, what do you have available? Well, that's not very polite. This is a conversation. You have to introduce yourself and just give them a little information. Just say, hi, how are you? Can you tell me blank blank, or I'm looking for blank blank, or I'm interested in your company because of this or that, and start that conversation. I was able to use my camera. Some employees, some job seekers did not want to be seen. And those that were put on their cameras, I was like, you're not ready to attend a job fair because this is an interview. One of the ladies that signed into my room, her hair wasn't done. Her room was very dark. She wasn't something that looked like a house coat. Her face, she looked like really, like she just had woken up, roll out of bed, and turn the camera on and got on this job fair. I'm like, what is happening here? This is a job fair where you're supposed to be meeting with employers. This other lady gave me her resume and asked me what I think she should be applying for. I said, just to Elaine's point, well, not here, whatever it is, not here, because clearly you have no idea how to do this. So you have to prepare for the job fair, virtual job fair, as if it was an in-person job fair. You want to, again, make sure that your backdrop is right, make sure that you're dressed properly, make sure that you have your resume. Even if you already submitted your resume to the Zoom, to the company, you want to have it in front of you because you will be asked questions. You want to have an idea what you're looking for. If not an idea, you know what you're looking for, because the employer is not, their job is not to tell you where you should be working. You should come in prepared, say, I am looking for an administrative assistant position. I'm looking for an IT director position, and go for the company that has those openings. Not just come into you and say, well, do you have black X, Y, and Z, when clearly the job's already posted, what we have and don't have. If you want to have that conversation, then get in touch with them on a different platform and then reach out to them like that. But don't come in to the job fair, the virtual job fair, and treat it like, okay, this is nothing. This is an interview. This is an interview for the employer to know, is this a good match for this job opening that I have? And if you are, then the idea is that you're going to have a follow-up email or follow-up conversation to figure out what is the next step. But definitely treat it as if it was an in-person job fair. Be prepared, bring your resume, dress appropriately, be polite, be mindful of the backdrop, have your documentation ready, be friendly, be professional. It is okay to be nervous, because we know we all get nervous when we have to talk to other people, most of us. It is totally okay. people understand that. What people do not understand and do not like is people that are unprepared, people that are rude, people that don't know what they want, and who seem to not care. If you don't care, why should I care? Does that answer your question, Erica?
Yes, it does. I just had one follow up. Yeah, you said a mouthful. Yes, you fully answered the question.
Thank you.
I'm gonna try to see if I can get into one of these virtual job fairs just because I wanted to see exactly what you're saying, just to kind of.
It's a great experience. It's a great experience as a job seeker. Yeah, I've done it both ends as a business to give the attendees feedback on their resumes, and some of them, most people that come to my table, actually the organizers send them to me before they go and meet with the employer. Like, oh, you need to talk to Flora because you're not prepared for this. And it's like, I'm boggling the fact that you're going to go to a job fair and don't think that this could turn into an opportunity. You could walk out of there with a job.
Right. Yeah. So the follow-up I had, you mentioned the situation about the young lady's hair. And I'm just curious. It's a two-part question. One, if that had been an in-person interview, would that have become like a coachable thing if you were in the resume prep? Like, how would you have, because I feel like in the virtual, it's just like, okay, you're on the camera. Oh, well, like you're making a mental note of the fact that she looks a bit disheveled.
A bit?
A bit, a bit disheveled. And then my second question is, I have alopecia, and when I was going through the process of when my locks were actually falling out, I wore head wraps, and I just transitioned. I worked for the government. I transitioned from having my locks, you could see all of my locks, to having it covered by a scarf to what I have on my head right now. So I'm also curious of just your feedback, both in the virtual, in this kind of interview space, how those may be perceived, because maybe, it could be a bad hair day, or it could be something else in terms of why somebody may have, it could be cultural. But just any of you can also comment, like your thoughts about it, because we're going to get into like questions people can't ask you, but I'm just asking in terms of how you coach people, what becomes a scenario, and what would be your advice?
As a career coach, actually, one of my clients has alopecia, and I have encouraged her to just shave her head and be a little bit more natural. She doesn't feel comfortable. She's extremely shy. And the reason why I'm encouraging her to do that is because when she does have a hairpiece, it bothers her, and she's constantly scratching it and constantly trying to fix it. So I'm like, okay, maybe if you try to go natural every now and then, at least in the house, see how comfortable you feel like that, and you'll start going out like that. Because one of my very good friends, she also has alopecia, and when I first met her, she had long, beautiful hair. I'm like, oh, she has beautiful hair. Then come to find out it was a wig. I'm like, oh, okay. And she explained to me why. I'm like, she's beautiful. So now she wears her hair like that, and sometimes she wears a head scarf. I will say her scarf rather. If you feel comfortable and you feel that that's who you are, depending what job you're gonna go for, and if just being transparent, there are some positions that you could go and you could wear your head wrap, and you're not going to get the job based on that alone. People are not going to tell you, Erica, you didn't get the job because you have this on. Whether you're wearing it because of health reasons, because you're vain, whatever the case might be, or because you're having some scalp issue. They don't care because of cultural or religion reasons. Some employers will not care, and they will not tell you why they're not going to offer you the job. You could be perfect in every other sense, but because of that, they will not hire you. But again, it's going to be based on the employer, and that's what doing the research for the company comes in. You want to work for a company that is aligned with your values, not just your professional values, but also your personal and your cultural values. If you know that if you're looking for a job in a company and you look at who is in charge where, and all you see are people that look nothing like you, sound nothing like you, then most likely you don't want to assume that you're going to be discriminated, but you want to kind of like, still go doing do everything the right way, but just know that they might not be so, I'm going to use friendly for lack of a better word, to have you on board, because you might not be part of the culture that the company has. And because you're not part of the culture, they might not know how to deal with certain things. My advice is be a professional version of you, just go to different jobs and be ready for some companies to really discriminate, but they're not going to tell you why.
Gotcha.
And some settings, that might not be a good look, regardless of whether it is your religion, your health issues, whatever the case might be. The company might say, well, no, and they might find something else why they're not going to hire you, because it's not going to be a good look for them, for that culture. But again, do we want to work for a company like that?
So before we transition into, I know Khadijah has another question. We have a question from the chat, and it says, I have not had a virtual interviews yet. When I joined my internship group, the introductions to my new co-interns and internship coordinator were virtual. What are some tips for introductions in virtual meetings that are more casual settings than interviews?
There's really no casual. If it's an interview, you don't want to treat it like anything is casual about it, whether it's a Zoom or whether it's in person. It's an interview. It's something that you want to show the employer that you take this very seriously, because clearly, if you are being interviewed, they take it very seriously. They have allocated time and human capital to come in and spend time with you to do what they want to do, to figure out if you're going to be able to move to the next step. So don't ever treat an interview, whether it's in person or through any social media platform, as something casual. You want to do the research for the company. You want to maybe find out if possible, especially now the companies are closed, but you want to do your research. If you know about the company, if you know anybody that works there, ask them what is usually the dress code. But when you're not sure about the dress code, you still want to dress like, hey, I'm serious about this. I took the time and the effort to really present myself in the way that I'm going to be coming into your company and do work. So don't treat it as anything casual. You always want to be professional.
And I would just add, be sure to, even though in general we are much more casual in terms of using people's first names, just in general, but when you're coming for an interview, I should be Ms. Gross. Let me tell you that, you can call me Elaine, that's fine. But don't be too casual in any way, in your dress, in your speech, in the way that you interact. I'm not your buddy, or whatever. So don't act like that. You don't know me.
I agree with you under the 1%. I've interviewed people who come in. One of the jobs that I had, I was a career advisor, and I have people to come in and they just throw their stuff on my desk, or just start reaching out for this or that on my desk, or start asking me questions, or just making inappropriate comments. It's like, dude, we don't know each other like that. Like, know your lane, stay over there. You're trying to get a job here, or you're trying to get a service, then you want to kind of be like a little bit more reserved and be professional in every approach. You always want to be professional. You want to be friendly, but not too friendly. You want to smile and you want to be warm, because that you're transmitting that to the employer, the prospective employer. And people hire people that they could work with, people that they could see on a daily basis, people that they could have conversations with. We don't have to be friends, but we have to have some type of professional relationship. And if I cannot connect with you during the first few minutes of us meeting, I cannot see you in my space, most likely you're not going to get the job.
Thank you so much, guys. So, a question that I had, this week as part of my internship, we had to create a personal statement or elevator pitch. I know for me personally, one of the interview questions that I struggle with answering is, and Ms. Cahill kind of touched on this, is the tell me about yourself question. And also, like, what are your greatest weaknesses, and what exactly the interviewer is looking for when they say, like, when you're supposed to answer, what are your salary expectations? Like, I just want money. How do I exactly answer that?
I will take the salary question just to get started. When you are looking for work, the idea is that you are very realistic about your skill set. You're not, you know that if you're a recent college grad and you have no experience, you cannot possibly come in asking top dollars because you haven't earned that. What you need to do really is do your research as a job seeker, know your value. You want to know, you want to be realistic about your skill set, and you really want to say, okay, if someone at an entry level doing what I'm doing with 1 to 3 years of experience is making, let's say, $40,000 per year, I have no experience whatsoever. I didn't do an internship. I haven't done anything. Can I really expect to go in there and ask the employer to give me $40,000? Most likely you're not going to get that because you have not earned that. So if you are coming in totally new, you have no experience, my advice is do what you're doing. Do an internship. Employers are willing to pay a little bit more for people who have no actual work experience, but who have internship experience, because that is experience. And that actually speaks of you, how you're willing to invest in yourself as a professional. So in terms of salary expectations, do your research to find out if you're an entry level, mid-level, or higher level professional. And also you want to be realistic about your skill set. Yes, you might be a mid-level professional, but you went to school back in 1990, you haven't done any classes, you haven't done any certifications, you might not be able to ask for the same amount of money from someone who recently graduated from college or has experience or graduated from college a while back, but they're keeping the skills up to date. So there's really a lot of factors for you to, for the job seekers to come in and say, I want X amount of money. And then when they don't get it, they get upset. When I was a grad student, I was making $14 an hour back in the 90s. And I was like, oh, I need to be making more money. I'm about to graduate from college with a bachelor's degree. And I got myself fired from the job because I thought I was too good for the job. I was like, oh, I was too good for them anyway. And then come to find out that it took me really like 2 years to really understand why I was fired. I thought I was it, but guess what? I wasn't. I didn't have any experience. I wasn't polished to work in an office. I really didn't have the customer service skills. I didn't have the phone skills. I didn't have any of those skills because I was just a college student working in retail, going from retail college student to being in an office setting. I had no idea how to behave myself. Then when I got fired, I had the nerve to be mad with the employer. And then I'm like, what? They should never hire me, to be honest, or give me some better training because I was not prepared. I was not realistic about my skill set at that point. Now I am a little bit more realistic about what I'm able to do. When I talk to my clients, I really coach them about where they should be in their career, what their value is, what they have done in terms of skills, in terms of education, what they're doing in their community. And those things add value, and that value transfers or becomes monetized value. But you have to really keep up yourself with the skills and be willing to be trainable and coachable. Because maybe you don't have a specific something that you're supposed to learn, but the employer during the interview sees that you're really eager to work there, you have all the skills, and you're open-minded, and you want to be trained, and you want to be coachable, or you're doing your own thing trying to get that skill that you need to have. The employer, even if they don't offer you the job, like, wow, I'm really impressed with this person because they're willing to learn. And sometimes that does make a difference. Salary, do your research, know your value, be realistic about your skill set.
I have a quick comment on the tell me about yourself. You do have to decide what is it about yourself that would be most relevant and interesting to the person who is interviewing you. Don't tell everything because we don't need to know everything. You just want to tell enough that the employer doesn't think that you're in the witness protection program, you know, that you have some dark secrets. So, you know, just be open and tell folks about yourself and give them a sense of who you are. It's very difficult. You have loads of paper that you get, and you're trying in a relatively short period of time to make some kind of decision about this person before you. And you know that it's more than particular courses that they took and particular skills that they have. You know that who that person is and what they bring with them is important. So you want to give them that kind of information. You can also not bother to tell information that they might use to discriminate against you. So this is not the time to say, and I have 5 children, and I've, you know, and all of this sort of stuff. No, don't go into all of that. You know, just tell them some things about you, and they're interesting things that people can learn later.
Right. I too, I agree with everything Elaine said, and Flora as well. The question is, tell me about yourself, is more, I believe, to find out what kind of person you are before you might become an employee of this company. What are the things that are important to you? What are the things that you would enjoy doing? Are you a person who enjoys being a part of a team? Because, you know, everything now is a team. Are you a person who enjoys being part of a team? You could speak to that. Are you a person who's very direct, that you will say whatever, you will be direct about what you are saying, and truthful, and that you're, as Elaine said, and that you're open, and that's an important thing. The employer wants to know, always wants to know, no matter how good you say your skill sets are, what are you going to be able to do for me, for real? What are you going to be able to help me reach my goal, whether it's the bottom line or whatever? You need to persuade me that you have what I believe is necessary in this particular position to get me where I need to be. And if you're talking to an Elaine who is the supervisor or the boss or the, you know, you need to persuade them that you also would be a person that would have her back or his back, that you will work to do what you need to do, always keeping in mind you want to be able to make Elaine look good. So that's important as well. I'm probably talking at a level where you're more at a mid-level position rather than an entry level, but those things are important, I believe.
I think those are all great points in terms of not giving out too much information, particularly coming from, you know, the president of Erase Racism, who, if people do violate your rights, you know, between her and Flora, I think they have you covered, to make sure that you know what your rights are. But one thing that something that I've kind of come across personally and just in talking to people, as a Black professional who has achieved higher education, so I have 2 degrees, I was in a situation where I went to go interview to be a real estate agent, right? So in addition to having the degrees, I was interviewing with different entities, and I found myself in a particular interview. There was a second person in the interview that had come with me that was also interviewing for that particular brokerage. And while I was answering the questions, the person said to me, I quote, "Wow, you're so articulate." Like, it almost sounded like, wow, you've mastered the English language. Like, good for you, Black girl. I was highly offended. And the person who was with me across the room looked at me trying to see how I was going to respond to this. Like, and it was a Caucasian woman that made the comment. And as she said it, I looked at her and said, I have 2 degrees and I have a real estate license, and I'm here being interviewed to be a potential real estate agent. Right? Like, how you feel about how I have mastered the English language is irrelevant. I mean, it was clearly offensive. And afterwards she was like, are you going to set up the second interview? And I was thinking to myself, no, because you have a racial issue that is making me uncomfortable, right? Like, the way the statement was made was already offensive, and it was, quite frankly, unnecessary, right? Like, you didn't have to say anything. I answered the question. It was no need to comment on my articulation. But my question really to Flora, and then I would throw it to even Elaine, is I know that there are times when people, I mean, I knew enough not to react. I mean, having someone who worked in HR in my household, I wasn't going to react, but I know someone else, you know, may have reacted differently because it was offensive. But I know there are other situations where people ask questions that may be unethical. Either they invited it, to Elaine's point, because they started giving out too much information, like, I'm a mother of 5 kids, and somebody asking you, do you plan on becoming pregnant again? Right? That's not appropriate, but you've now just disclosed that you have 5 kids. So they felt like you opened the door. I'm just curious, what is your advice for someone who finds themselves in a situation where someone is either asking what may be an unethical question or has made a comment that is either racist, inappropriate, whatever? Like, what is your advice in terms of how they should handle it?
When we go to interviews, we want to be mindful, like Elaine said, the information that we share, because that opens itself up for discrimination. However, not all the time we do that. A lot of times the employers are the ones who open the door and walk right through it. You handle the situation just the way I would advise any of my clients to handle it, professionally, because you want somebody else to, like I said to my clients, let somebody else act the fool. You stay professional at all times. We are all discriminated against for one reason or another. How we respond to it right then and then really determines what could happen next, but it's very important that we remain professional at all times. There is a difference, and that was not an illegal question, that was not an unethical question, that was an inappropriate comment that she made. And she should have never made that. You handle it very, very well in terms of, well, there's a reason why I am an educated person, and you shouldn't be looking at making that comment based on what I look like, because that's how I'm taking it, and that's most likely how you're saying it. So just say, I'm an educated person, I have X amount of degrees, and the reason why I'm qualified for this job is this and that, and kind of bypass at that time, bypass the real reason why they're doing it, because there's no, to a certain extent, there's no proof right then and then that this is why they're doing it, because you're a Black woman, right? So then you could take that to a lawyer if you want to, and have a conversation with somebody, maybe if you know somebody else who have interviewed with the company, because companies do have a pattern, and you will see it. And when you do research about the companies, you will come across certain comments that people make, and you might be able to reach out to those people and talk to an attorney or someone like that, so civil rights attorney. We want to make sure that we are clear on not providing the employees with employers information to discriminate against us right then and then. And that could be background, that could be being pregnant, that could be plans to get married, plans to relocate, pre-existing conditions, anything and everything that has to do with religious practices, family, with family size, relocation, anything that is your past, your history. You don't want to share that information until you must. If you must, there's some information where you might have to give that information in, but that is after the job's been offered, and that will be a whole other conversation. So you want to make sure that you remain professional at all times, and you have to then make a decision, an individual decision. I feel that I was already discriminated against just during the interview. Do I really want to come back and put myself through this on a day-to-day basis? Because maybe that was a one-time incident. Maybe this person is just very ignorant. Maybe this person meant to say, wow, I really love the way you express yourself. Okay, that's a different way. That what you're saying to me, I think you're very smart. Or you're saying, wow, you're really smart. And then you have to make a decision. Do I want to come back here? Do I talk to somebody else? Do I go in and talk to a lawyer? Some people will have a conversation with an attorney. Some people will say, what do you mean by that? Or some people might say, do you mean by that? So, and that right there, if as an employee, we react like that, that could cause other issues. So we want to be mindful of whomever we are interviewing with. We want to remain professionals at all times, but also be mindful when we are being discriminated against, and then decide what type of action we as individuals want to take.
I would just add that because we know a lot of people are not conscious of, they're not conscious of a lot of things, including of their own biases and of the way in which they might be offensive. I wouldn't have automatically judged one statement to say that that was indicative of who this person is. You would have to see what else the person was doing and how the person was responding to you. So I think it's important also to not be too quick to judge, because some folks, once you say to them, do you, and you wouldn't do this in an interview, obviously. But I mean, some people, when you're working with them, if you say something like, well, when you say X, Y, Z, this is the way it sounds to me. They might take that and say, oh, really? I didn't realize that. So you don't know exactly where people are coming from. And that's hard to figure out in that those few minutes that you have with someone. But I would lean toward being a little more, giving them the benefit of the doubt, not assuming the worst immediately, because you might miss out on, if you're interested, you might miss out on something that could be good for you if you let that one thing decide for you. You don't want that one comment to make the decision for you. You want to make the decision for yourself, and maybe you ask a few more questions or something, so that you stretch out the interaction a little bit, so you see what you get a better sense of what's behind that person.
Thank you. As we wrap up, we had a question in the chat from Shantice. She asks, what's the best way to get into your field? And this is for anyone. What's the best way to get into the field of your interest without experience?
I will take that. The best way to get into a field that you're interested in without experience is maybe volunteer, do an internship, shadow someone that is in that field. But maybe there's a certification program for that field that you're interested in getting into. You want to, again, do your research, maybe conduct an informational interview for the person who's already in the field that you're trying to get into, to find out how they got there. And see if those things work. And also, you might want to talk to a career coach, because sometimes we're interested in something, we don't know why. And we might not have the aptitude for it, or we might, once we get there, we're like, once we find out a little bit more, like, oh, I really didn't want to do that. Like, I don't want to do finances. I'm more of a social services person. So you want to, before you decide that that's what you really want to go to, do some steps, volunteer, do an internship, shadow someone that is there, do your research, maybe do some studying and that. And at the end, ask a question to yourself, do I really want to continue doing this?
Yeah, and I would just add, get into it by learning about it. Get into it by read some books, educate yourself, and then do all of the things that Flora said,
Perfect, thank you so much.
So one of the things I wanted to kind of follow up on, and I know that Flora's brought it up a couple of times, was about internships, right? And the importance of internships in terms of a way of getting experience in maybe a field that you may have some sort of interest in. So I would like to give Flora opportunity also, because I know that she's looking for an intern, to kind of share with our audience about what you're looking for, and also to provide some guidance when people are trying to market themselves to internships where they are truly looking to learn and may not have all of the required skill sets, but they're interested in the field. How do they present themselves?
Thank you, Erica. I am currently looking for an intern. I'm looking for someone, more than anything, someone that's willing to learn, and someone that could teach me things too, because sometimes we think that we only are going to learn from the employer, the person that we're working with. Sometimes we also teaching the employers. So I want someone that is coachable, someone that is willing to learn, someone that is going to be present. When they are with me, even if it's for 5 minutes, it's all about what we are doing. I want someone that is at a marketing or business student, or someone that's like, you know what, I want to learn how to build a business from the bottom up. I want someone that is willing to learn. They don't have to have a master's degree or a bachelor's degree. Even if it's someone that's home, a housewife that's trying to do something besides, like, okay, you know what, I have a couple of hours and I want to learn something new. I want to learn what it's like to build a business. I want to learn about a business plan. I want to learn about social media. That's the type of person that I'm looking for. The best way is to, if they don't have a resume, I help them build a resume as long as they have some type of skill that I could use. Submitting your resume, and like Ms. Elaine said, you want to look at what the person is asking for. So, well, am I going to be able to, am I coachable? Do I want to learn? Do I have the time? Am I going to be open-minded? Do I have any background in this? Am I willing to take the time for this person to teach me? Do I know anything about that? Oh, I don't know anything about business plans. Well, let me research that. Let me read a book. What is that? What information goes in there? What do I know about social media? Oh, what is social media? Just know something before you reach out to me. And the value of internships, I cannot say it enough to my clients. If you don't have any experience, any work experience, and you don't have an internship, or you don't value the internship that you have, you'll be surprised the things that you learn when you go to an internship. A lot of people think, especially students, because I was one of them, oh, if you go to an internship, I'm not here to get coffee. Guess what? Sometimes by getting that coffee, you get to learn so much about the environment where you work, your supervisor, the people that you go and get the coffee from, the players in there. It's not just going and getting the coffee. It's a lot more. Are you able to follow directions? Are you a team player? Because maybe your boss cannot get up and go and get the coffee because they have a meeting coming up and they really need to be up. You are helping them by doing that. So being an intern is not just getting coffee or making copies for someone. It's part of a team where you're going to learn some skills that you are going to be able to use when you do become a professional, because you're learning to work in a team setting. You're learning to work how the machines work, how the equipment works, what is the dynamic of the office, who has the decision-making power in the office. And next thing you know, you might be able to stay there. When I did my internships, I was blessed enough that I was offered a job at both internships once I was done for my grad studies. And I was like, oh my God, really? You think I have strong work ethics? I come in here and I'm barely doing this. They're like, no, stay here. And I'm like, okay, cool. So you want to make sure that when you decide to do an internship, that you take it seriously, because you could get a job right after the internship or even during the internship. So look at it as, this could be my next employer.
Thank you so much. And we have gotten so much, we have gotten so much good information today, and our Black ladies are dropping gems. So as we wrap up, we typically ask, are there any golden nuggets that you guys would like to leave the audience with? Anybody?
So
Okay. I'll make one last thing. Just be the person who's willing to go beyond what they're asked to do at all times. Don't be the person that at 5 o'clock, or, if you're a 9 to 5, at 5 o'clock, oh, it's 5 o'clock, I'm gone, whatever. If you intend to have a career at this place, wherever you are, just be able to go beyond what's being asked of you, and to think beyond what your job description, because that will do you in good stead as you go forward.
And I would say, bring your best self, and understand that you're not perfect. None of us are. But if you are genuine, that will go a long way.
To all of that, I would add, practice your interview skills. Practice. Be honest and realistic about your skill set, and also be coachable. Employers are willing to teach you. They're willing to work with you if they see that you are going to receive that and use that to help them grow, whatever that is, whether it's customers, financial, whatever growth means for that specific organization. So be coachable when you go through the interviews. Be open-minded, because employers do want to work with the employees.
Thank you all. So thank you, Flora Quick of Quick Resume Career Services. Thank you, our retired HR professional, Kay Hill. A special thanks to President of Erase Racism, Elaine Gross, for taking the time out of, I'm sure, your busy schedule, given all that is going on in the world, to be part of our panel. Just as a reminder to everybody, Erase Racism is hiring for two positions. They are full-time positions. And like we explained during the first session, you should be looking towards your career trajectory, right? Even if you're going to apply for a job, look at some organizations where there's actually growth and opportunities for you to learn, where people will be kind of grooming you and offering you sort of mentorship versus something that appears very transactional, which you could do at any point in time. But if you're really looking to make yourself essential, because I think that was one of the things that came up during the first session, is that people thought they were essential, and then COVID came, and it was made very clear who was essential and who wasn't, unfortunately, right? So being able to present yourself during the job seeker process, when you're writing your cover letter, writing your resume, making sure your cover letter is persuasive, making sure you read. If I can't emphasize enough, if you read the job description, I believe Trey said it during the last session, Elena said it here, the employer gives you all of the information you need to actually be successful in submitting an application, right? Like, they're telling you what they're looking for. They're telling you the skill set. They're telling you how to apply. A lot of people fail because they just don't follow directions. And that in itself is something that is made clear to the employer when you send the information, right? So if they say, send me a cover letter that is persuasive, and you send one that says, Dear Ms. Gross, I'm great to be, and it's not, you're not naming the position, right? That indicates to her, you didn't even follow the direction. So there's no need to read on. You have failed to follow instructions. And that alone is half the battle. Just follow the instructions. Read the job description. It says you need to have these certain skill sets. You need to articulate that you have them. And then, obviously this session was about interviews. So let's say you found the job, you've gotten the training, you took an internship, you went to Flora, she helped you with your cover letter and your resume. Now you need to test out or practice this whole interview thing, right? So call Flora, call myself. Kay has volunteered some of her time to do mock interviews, but practice with someone, right? Don't just walk or sit down in front of the computer cold. There are people that'll be willing to practice, even if it becomes your friend, and just, talk to them or ask them your feedback about body language. One of the things that came up as a failure in interviews is people's nonverbal cues, right? It's kind of how you're presenting yourself, your facial expressions, like it's conveying to someone that you don't really want to be here, that you don't want to be bothered, like you're popping in and out of Flora's room on a job, in the job fair. That doesn't leave a good impression. So be cognizant of it, and it's good to practice with people. Practice in front of a mirror so you can see for yourself. Dress completely. So I know some people have been saying like, oh, all I need is the blazer. But I remember Elaine saying this during our prep session. You never know, the fire alarm could go off or something is burning on the stove and you have to get up. The moment you get up, everybody sees from your waist down. Mm-hmm. So if you have on boxers, you have on whatever you have on, right? Now everybody sees it. So you should just dress completely. That way, should you have to get up, you still look like you were ready to be in an interview. So again, this is Erica Hill with Vision Street Research. We're happy to be a resource. Our website is visionstreetresearch.com. You can find more information about workforce development. Our job seeker board has the roles that both Flora and Elaine have, as well as other opportunities that you can take advantage of. And this session is being recorded. So anybody that has registered for the session, I will be emailing it out. It'll also include how you can contact these lovely individuals that have taken the time out. So again, thank you again. I hope you have an amazing rest of the afternoon and great week.
Good afternoon. See you later.